The season kicks off in a jungle where we see this scared girl with a strange look. She's trying to break free by banging her tied-up hands against a rock, and she's even bleeding from her mouth. She's also mumbling some weird stuff, like she's trapped or held captive. Finally, when she manages to get her hands free, she takes off running like her life depends on it. Then the scene cuts and we're inside a house where we meet a girl named Maggie. She's with her whole family and is currently playing with her son, Alu. By the way, Maggie is actually a cop. Here's a colloquial and authentic translation of the text you provided. After treating the animals, Maggie's husband James tells her that for some reason, their goats are really scared. Through their conversation, we learn that lately, they haven't been happy together. James says to Maggie, "Whatever it is, we can sit down and work it out." But Maggie replies, "No, I'm just not ready to deal with this right now." With that, she goes into her animal shed, where she also keeps a bunch of horses, and all of them look pretty scared too. It's in this animal shed video that we see Maggie's son, Io. Here's a more colloquial version of your text. He took off towards the woods, and no one saw him except for that girl who we saw at the beginning of the story. Now, she's secretly watching Alo with these weird, curious eyes. It's getting dark, but there's still no sign of Alo. Maggie is really worried about him. But James tells her, "You know how Andal is? He loves to hide. He's probably just somewhere out of sight." While they're having this conversation, their anxious neighbors come over, all worked up because their horse is freaking out, doing some bizarre stuff. It even hurt itself in the process, and now it's in pretty bad shape. Maggie was bleeding as she told her neighbor Robin to take the horse to the hospital. Now she was going along with him, while the others stayed behind to search for Ilo. Ruben's wife and son, who live next door to James, also showed up at their house. At that moment, the radio was playing some weird sounds. Ruben's son, Nicholas, mentioned that he had heard those noises earlier in the day. Ruben's wife, Lyria, brought up an alarming point. One of their neighbors' dogs had also gone missing, just like Ilo. Meanwhile, at the clinic, we see Maggie taking care of the injured horse. Sure. Here's a colloquial and authentic English translation of the text. She was where deep cuts were visible on the horse's body. Surprisingly, it didn't seem like there was any weight damage. After a lot of back and forth, we finally got to see Alo in the jungle. Alo was still looking for his goat, while that weird and poor girl was still chasing after Alo. At the same time, she was mumbling strange words to herself. By now, everyone was out looking for him in the jungle, including James and his neighbor, Lyria. From their conversation, we found out that at one point, these two were in a relationship, and they hadn't told their partners about it. They can hear the voices of Meryl and Nicholas, who have both found their lost animals, their goat and their neighbor's dog. That's when they realize that Alok must be around too. Alok is shown lying unconscious on the ground with some minor wounds on his body. Right next to him is the lady from the woods. As soon as Alok comes to, he sees her right above him and gets scared. The girl also freaks out and lets out a loud shout, and at the same time, a rainbow-like light flashes in her eyes. That same light then appears in Alok's eyes too. Here's the text translated into colloquial and authentic English After hours of searching for Arlo, who went missing after a shiny object appeared, they finally gave up and headed back home. They decided to inform the police. Just as they got home, Arlo showed up behind them. But he was acting strange, like that woman from the woods, and was mumbling some weird words. As soon as he got close to his mom, he passed out, and everyone was terrified. Back in the woods, they discovered something creepy had happened. A strange creature had caught and killed the girl who had been wandering around since morning. Here's a colloquial translation of the text. The family was really panicking because Earl had fainted. They tried calling an ambulance, but their phones weren't getting any signal. Just then, a car pulled up outside their houses, and a guy in a mask got out. He started marking a blue line around their homes and warned them not to cross it. Jebs didn't get what he was saying and tried to approach him to talk. But in the background, we could see the lights in their houses flickering. They had even tried to take someone to the hospital earlier. Here's a colloquial and authentic translation of the text you provided. Their cars had stopped working, and they wanted to ask the masked guy about it. But the masked guy pulled out a gun and stopped them from moving forward, warning them to back off before leaving the scene. Meanwhile, more people were starting to come to their senses. His mom was bandaging him up and asking what had happened. But the others didn't really remember anything. Suddenly, he started to mumble some weird words, just like that lady from the woods had done. Seeing him like that freaked everyone out even more. Here's a colloquial and authentic translation of the text you provided. He keeps telling everyone to get out of there as fast as they can because some goons are coming who will kill everyone. After that, no one can make sense of anything. Even Nicholas, his neighbor, when he comes to meet him, gets shoved so hard by Lo that he hits the wall and starts bleeding from his head. Miri, his sister, tries to keep him in check, and Lo passes out again. When he comes to, Miri asks him what's wrong, but every time Lo acts out like that, he never remembers anything afterwards. After a while, you can see him reading a dictionary. Here's a colloquial English translation of your text. He's going through the dictionary, looking for weird words and telling Mariel about them. One of the words was trap. Mariel asks him what he means by trap, and he explains that there's a voice in his head saying everyone should hide. If you don't, you'll get killed. The scene shifts to show us Maggie's neighbor Donald in the forest, who got really emotional and went into the woods because he thought there was a vicious beast that had harmed not only him but also his dog. Before he could even spot any kind of beast in the forest, here's a colloquial translation of the text into English. As he turned around after hearing something hit his foot, he saw the body of a girl lying there. Before he could even recognize her, a black dog lunged at him, growling. At first, Donald tried to calm it down, but when he realized it was just angry and rabid, he took off running into the woods. On the other side, James and Rubin were waiting for him. Unfortunately for Donald, the dog jumped after him and attacked, leaving him pretty badly injured. But Donald was determined to save himself, no matter what. He throws that dog with all his might, and the dog ends up falling on the other side of the blue line that the masked man had set up. James and Rubin are shocked to see that as soon as the dog crosses the line, it dies, not in a normal way, but in a really creepy manner with all its bones sticking out. So, the masked man wasn't wrong. He was right about not crossing that line and the reasons behind it, although they don't know that yet. Meanwhile, we see Donald's wife insisting on going home, which is on the other side of the blue line. Has a colloquial translation of your text. Everyone was trying to stop her, but she wouldn't listen to anyone and crossed that blue line. As soon as she did, she met a brutal end. Her body shriveled up in a creepy way, with her bones sticking out. She turned into a horrifying version of herself. Seeing such a terrifying and dangerous death freaked everyone out. Even Donald was totally shaken up when he saw his dead wife. As he reached out to touch her, his skin started to get messed up too. And watching this, James was really struggling to pull him back, but Donald was totally out of it. He was in shock and stayed that way until morning. Meanwhile, we see James and Maggie discussing the whole situation. And during this, Maggie was being extremely rude to James. When he questioned her about it, she snapped back, saying she knew about his relationship with Laria. James was shocked to hear this and told Maggie, "That's all over. I'm in love with you, Maggie." But at this point, Maggie didn't want to hear any of it. Has a colloquial translation of the text into English. It turned out that Laria's husband, Ruben, was also standing outside of Deva's, and he had overheard everything. He had no idea about his wife's relationship until now. Anyway, Maggie gets angry and storms off, and later, she and her mom go to cover their neighbor's dead body with a shawl, which freaked everyone out. Meanwhile, James and Ruben get on their horses to check out the conditions in the woods. When they got there, they saw that the masked man had set up a line in the forest, and on the other side, when a snake came by, it. Sure. Here's the colloquial and authentic English translation of your text. Both got hurt, which means the situation was really bad. Outside, we see Maggie taking Donald to her vet clinic because, obviously, they couldn't leave the area for treatment. So, using whatever was lying around, Maggie treated Donald. While there, Donald tells Maggie about the body he saw in the woods. At Maggie's place, the three kids were sitting together, and Nicholas and Muriel noticed that Lo was looking up words in the dictionary like an adult, which seemed impossible for him. They asked Lo who he was looking for. Sure. Here's a colloquial and authentic English translation of the text you provided. So, what are you up to? Then the kid says, I'm not here. My mind is asleep right now. It feels like I've taken over his mind, and I'm harbinger. Out of nowhere, I grab Muriel's hand and say, you either hide, or you're all gonna get messed up. When I grabbed her hand like that, Muriel got scared. She tried to forcefully pull her hand away, and in the process, the glass of rainbow paint fell onto the drawing, mixing all the colors together. Looking at it, an idea hit Harbinger, and he took Muriel and Nicholas right into the middle of the woods. They arrived at a place where a lot of dead animals were scattered around, and there was also a burn mark on the ground, along with a bunch of rocks. According to Harbinger, these rocks were meteoroids. He says, this is my stone, this is my meteoroid, and I came here from the sky. Basically, he was trying to say that he came from space. They noticed that this meteoroid has some rainbow-like colors inside it, which Harbinger puts into a jar. He tells them that it's actually poison, but he wants them to drink it saying that if they just take a tiny bit, it'll be fine. Has a more colloquial and authentic English version of the text you provided. You won't die, and after drinking this, you'll be able to cross that line. The essences that are coming your way won't take over your mind. It's like an antidote. But if you drink even a little too much, you're still going to die. And if you don't drink at all, you'll die anyway. After saying this, the others start heading back home. And at this moment, Muriel turns to Harbinger and says, "Can you please bring Alo back to us for just a little while?" Harbinger agrees, and now Alo's spirit awakens. Muriel has a bunch of questions for Alo, and Alo responds about Harbinger. Here's a colloquial and authentic English translation of the text. Basically, there's an important mission going on where invisible aliens are about to attack. These aliens want to wipe out all the humans here, and someone is trying to stop it. So, we see this blue circle where everyone is trapped. Suddenly, a guy shows up, and when he does, Valeria warns him not to cross that line. But he confidently crosses it like he's known about it all along. He tells Valeria that getting in is easy, but getting out is tough, and there's danger waiting outside. Here's a colloquial translation of the text. He tells both of them that he knows what's going on here and that he's come to help them. During this conversation, Maggie also shows up and starts talking about the corpse she found in the woods. He says, "Yeah, I know about those lines. Actually, something really strange is going on outside those lines. There are vibes out there that are making it impossible for both humans and animals to survive. We want to rescue the people who got stuck in that vibration. We've put together a whole team, including a lot of army rangers and medical officers." Maggie listens to what this guy is saying. Maggie was listening intently, and she started to feel like this guy was lying. I mean, if he had such a big force with him, why was he here all alone? As soon as she realized that Maggie didn't believe him, he tried to attack her. But Maggie was way quicker. She pointed the gun she was holding right at his head and knocked him out cold. Then she tied him to a nearby pillar. After that, she searched through his stuff and found some stolen credit cards and a bunch of illegal items. That's when it clicked for her that he was lying about his identity when Laria suddenly showed up, and a heated argument started between them. Laria had an affair with Maggie's husband, James. I assured Laria that there was nothing going on between her and James anymore, but Maggie had already figured everything out about both of them. While they were arguing, the guy came to his senses and realized that Maggie knew all his secrets. So, he revealed his true intentions to Maggie and said, "I don't have much time. Hurry up and get your son and the others." Here's a colloquial translation of the text. "Bring her here." Maggie got scared because her son was in danger. He told Laria to keep an eye on things while he went off with Lo. Meanwhile, this guy starts acting like Laria is there to help him. Just when Laria is about to open up, Maggie's mom shows up, and Vele is there too. Once she's back to her senses, Maggie's mom tells her that they can't find her kids. Hearing that freaks her out, and she rushes off to check on them. Before she leaves, she hands a gun to Maggie's mom so she can keep an eye on this guy. Now he's focused on Maggie's mom. Here's a colloquial translation of the text into English. He tries to manipulate her, calling her over on purpose, saying something like, "You need to clean this blood off my eye." And as soon as she gets close, he tells Maggie's mom to open her mouth and moves in a strange way that makes it look like there's a glimmer of light in her eye. But then that light fades away from Maggie's mom's eyes, which had completely possessed her. She ends up shooting the guy in one go, and from that day forward, we can guess that whatever's happening is being controlled by some other force, almost like that force is shifting from this guy into Maggie's mom. Here's a colloquial translation of your text into English. So after that, Meg's mom confronts the guy and ends up banging her head against the wall, hurting herself to make it look like he attacked her first. In self-defense, she then ends up killing him in the woods. Meanwhile, her sister and her friend are on their way back home when they spot that Sam masked man standing just outside the forest, on the other side of the blue line he had drawn at the start of the season around their homes and the woods. He's still signaling to them with a signboard, warning them not to cross that line. And just like that, this guy ends up in the hands of the authorities. Here's a more colloquial and authentic translation of your text into English. He sees what's happening and immediately changes his boat's message, telling Orlo to hand over those four to him. But Rallo had already refused to do this. Hearing his denial, this guy crosses the blue line and comes over to them. Nothing happened to him for crossing the line either. Then he gets into a fight with Nicholas to grab a jar. But in the chaos, the jar breaks. Thinking this guy is his enemy, Nicholas tries to attack him. But Orlo tells them that he's not our enemy. It almost felt like Orlo, or the alien harbinger inside him, knew this guy. Here's a colloquial translation of that text into English. The guy starts telling Harbinger, "I wanted to help you, but that day you jumped out of the car and took off." Watching him talk to Orlo like that, both of them figured out that he wasn't their enemy. That's why Orlo's sister wrapped a bandage around his injury. Meanwhile, we see James and Robin walking up to a house where a bunch of noisy dogs are barking their heads off. Robin sneaks up and scares their dogs into silence before heading into a nearby storage room where there's a huge light source. Sure, here's a more colloquial and authentic English version of your text. When I hit him, James starts telling him about all the weird stuff happening with him and his family. The guy wasn't really paying much attention. But then James mentioned the mask pat that had this blue line drawn on the side of their houses. That made the guy realize James was talking about McNabb, who had also bumped into Orlo and his buddies in the woods. The guy was curious about how McNabb even knew about that. And who was this Mars man McNabb anyway? To explain that, the story flashes back to when McNabb was sitting at the bar and the guy, Travis, was at the Sam spot. Here's the text translated into colloquial and authentic English. I'm working when I find out that there's another entity inside this makeup. A power has possessed it and taken control. In a strange way, the makeup tells me that everyone is coming here and setting a trap where they're all going to be killed. You know, it's impossible to even see them, but they're spread out everywhere. Here, Martin is actually talking about the alien that's inside this time and location, and also inside his grandmother. Everyone here thinks what Martin is saying is nonsense. Then Martin shows them the injury on his hand. Sure. Here's a colloquial translation of the text you provided. He's trying to convince everyone that he's faced these guys before, but even after showing this, no one believes him, and they start thinking he's crazy. The vibe at the bar was getting pretty tense, so the bar owner asks Travis to drop this guy off at his place. On the way, we see that Travis is the only one who believes what McNabb is saying, so he starts asking McNabb more questions about all this. McNabb tells Travis that this colorful light, that's actually energy. It's like a living energy, an alien. That colorful light is what attracts people. Here's a colloquial and authentic translation of the text you provided. Drawing them in, she manages to possess them. Now, Macduff had reached a house where strange messages were scribbled on the rooftops. There was even a blue line drawn on the ground, and when he stepped inside the house, he saw a bunch of masks, which made him realize that MCN was actually telling the truth, and that all this stuff had come from outer space. He then decides that he will join MCN on his mission to save humanity from these evil aliens. After learning this, MCN starts giving him even more information and explains. Here's the text translated into a more colloquial and authentic English. You know, all the aliens people have talked about up until now usually look a certain way. But what's happening here is that these entities don't have any specific shape or even really exist in the way we think. They're more like a light. Every day, thousands of meteoroids come from space to Earth, and these so-called aliens ride in on them. That's why no one really knows when they arrive. They come here, make our bodies their home, and control our minds. Then, through us, they do whatever they want. We call these aliens visitors. Here's a colloquial English translation of your text. They say that just like there are some bad visitors, there are also a few good ones among them. And if a good visitor happens to show up on the ground to put a stop to the bad visitors' nonsense, the bad visitors will hunt down that good visitor and take them out first, so they can't mess up their plans. One such good visitor is actually inside Rallo too. That's why that guy came to take out Rallo, because there's a bad visitor inside him as well, one that's now in Grandma. We figured out that this bad visitor wants to eliminate the good visitor inside Rallo. Here's a colloquial and authentic translation of your text into English. It seems that during their conversations, they noticed something weird in the sky, like some bad visitors. Their suspicion turned into certainty when one of them started buying strange things like poison and guns. They're convinced that Mary wants to kill the good visitors. Their mission is to take out the bad visitors inside Mary before she can harm the good ones. Taking them out shouldn't be too hard. You shoot a visitor and they're done for. But Magnum keeps insisting that's not how you deal with visitors. Sure. Here's a colloquial and authentic English translation of the text. The only way to kill the host is by getting rid of the visitor. We have to pull the visitor out of the host's body. And there's only one way to do that. We need to dunk the host, the person who has the visitor inside them, in water. One night, Mackin told Travis a really sad story about his daughter, who had a good visitor inside her. She must have been the reason his body got weak, and that visitor couldn't survive inside him anymore. That's when she saw Travis nearby, so she went over and took control of him. After that, the visitor left her body and moved into Travis. When Mary came to, she was in a lot of pain and realized that now Travis was going to kill her. But really, it wasn't Travis. It was the visitor that was going to do the job. So, She fired the gun she was holding at Travis, wounding him. Seeing him in that condition, she quickly rushed over to him. Here's a colloquial translation of the text you provided. The other guy came over without knowing that Travis now had a bad visitor inside him. As soon as he got close, the visitor in Travis took control of the other guy too. Then it pulled off his mask and, with his mouth wide open, the visitor slipped into Travis' body. Travis had already been shot, so his body was weak, which is why this switch happened. Now, this guy, Travis' buddy, started searching for the girl who had the good visitor, the Heartbringer, inside her. And it turned out that this Heartbringer had moved into other people too. The big question now was, what would happen with the visitor? Here's a colloquial translation of the text into English. People were being taken out by the visitors, and they would kill them. So how did Travis manage to escape? He used his wits to get away. Just as the visitor was about to take over the whole body of that kid, Travis quickly ran off and hid in the basement. Right now, he's with James in the present. Everyone knows that if he goes outside, he'll be dead for sure because there's a huge trap set by the visitors in the storeroom. More and more visitors are coming in from that direction. Roshniksex would get himself killed as well. After sharing all this, Travis suddenly broke down and started crying. When James asked Travis why he was crying, Travis said, "I was watching my girl setting a trap. I knew she was doing it, but I didn't stop her because I was scared. Maybe I'm the root of all this trouble." With that, he threw a knife at James and said, "Free yourself." James managed to break free, while Travis used James's own gun to shoot himself and free himself from all this. As soon as James got outside, he saw that his neighbor, Ruben, was right there at the door, knocking away. Here's a colloquial English translation of the text you provided. James asked Ruben to come out, but Ruben said there's this tree that has a hold on him and won't let him leave. He told James to somehow open the door. Hearing this, James grabbed an axe and broke down the storage room door, somehow managing to pull Ruben out. But by then, Ruben was already under the tree's influence and just turned around and attacked James. Now, James could have fought back, but instead, he decided to take Ruben through the woods. On their way, they ran into their kids. Sure, here's a colloquial translation of the provided text. They were all heading back home after the whole making up situation. At home, we see that Maggie's mom, who's been taken over by a bad visitor, is about to make Maggie her next target. But just then, her friend Bolt showed up with good news, telling her that everyone is coming back together. Maggie rushes outside to see everyone. James is the first one to tell her to take care of making up since he's hurt. While he's treating him, James tells Maggie that Carmen's whole family has died. Meanwhile, we also see Ruben, whose son is asking him about some liquid. Here's a colloquial and authentic translation of your text. The liquid that River Ranch gave him was driving him crazy. As soon as he heard about it, he got all worked up and told his son to take him over to where that liquid was. By morning, both James and Mac were finding out that the guy Mac was with, who had been taken over by the visitor, was dead. When James hears the story from his mom, she tells him that the guy attacked her, which is why she had to kill him in self-defense. So, when they go into the story area to find him, They see that the guy's body is just lying there, and all the evidence pointed to what had happened. Here's a colloquial and authentic English translation of the text you provided. They were saying that this guy didn't say anything to Maggie's mom. Instead, it was Maggie's mom who ended up taking him out. And from this, they understand that the visitor has now entered their mom. So, James Fern goes off to find his mom. Meanwhile, Donald, who is his neighbor, informs Maggie about everything going on. On the other side, we see Ruben's family. They had all gone into the woods to check out that multicolored liquid. As soon as Ruben sees it, he freezes up weirdly. And just before he can do anything about it, they find themselves in a... Here's the text translated into colloquial and authentic English. A fox comes along and starts drinking this liquid. After that, the fox crosses a blue line that was marked here, and nothing happens to it. Meanwhile, crossing that line had been deadly for all the other animals and humans. This really surprised Nicholas. Then he spotted a diary lying nearby, which must have belonged to Mac. He picked it up, and just like that, switched to Maggie, who was currently dealing with the Sam situation. After all this, he goes to meet his son and the others because his daughter, Malin. Sure, here's a colloquial and authentic translation of the text. He told her that some kind of bad force had taken over Lo's body, and that's why when she started talking to this bad presence, it told her that it was here on a mission. It said it needed to complete its mission and find the machine that would help it go back home. But it also knew it had to be super careful, because if it messed up even a little bit, all the bad visitors who want to harm everyone would wake up the humans who are currently asleep. Then Maggie asks it a question about. Feel free to send more text if you need further translation. Here's a colloquial and authentic English translation of the given text. So, if you found that machine, what would you do? He replies, that machine's button is me. If I get that machine, I'll just turn it on. But the moment I do, all the bad visitors will be ready to take out the locals. We see that Mac is lying there, listening to their conversation, and after hearing what they said, he suddenly jumps up, grabs a gun, and tells Mac, hand those people over to me, or they'll all get killed. Meanwhile, Donald, who knows the whole story, becomes alert upon seeing all this and, for the time being, is focused on saving the locals. Here's a colloquial and authentic English translation of the provided text. They manage to take her somewhere safe. But then Maggie tells Harbinger to join her body. But Harbinger says, no way, I'm fine in Olo's body because it's smaller. And you guys are all bigger. You can take care of him. If I jump into your body, there won't be enough big folks to save you. Everyone was catching on to this. Even Maggie's mom had this word visitor in her, and they had to save her and the others from it. So everyone got on the Sam mission. As soon as they all go to capture Alan, who is Maggie's mom, here's a colloquial and authentic translation of the provided text. To everyone there, Maggie's mom seemed totally normal. But when the visitor had taken over her body, she stopped shaking completely. Now, though, she was shaking badly and obviously scared. It was clear that whatever had been controlling her was gone, and now the big question was whose body it had gone into. Everyone started to get suspicious. If they investigated through Maggie's mom, She would say that when the visitor left her body for someone else's, she couldn't really see his face well. Now, that bad visitor could be in anyone. How could they tell which body he was in? Here's a colloquial translation of your text. Inside, Nicholas says to everyone that there's a way to find out who the bad visitor is by submerging them in water. It was a pretty clever idea, and they start working on it. In the next scene, we see Maggie holding an instruction page that she probably found near her neighbor's house. It said that to get the visitor out of a person, they need to be dunked in water, and it explained how to save that person's life afterward. Just as she was reading this, Nicholas appeared behind her. Here's a colloquial translation of your text. There was a hammer in his hand, and it was possible that he had a bad visitor inside him. But right there, I could also see Malaria, Nick's demand, acting really weird. It felt like a bad visitor could be inside her too. In this confusing situation, she had no clue who to trust or who to avoid. Peeking outside, we see our three neighbors, Ruben, Donald, and James, lighting a fire outside the house of the dying neighbor, hoping all the smoke would attract someone to come help. Ruben thought it was ridiculous to think anyone would actually come to help them. Sure. Here's a colloquial English translation of the text you provided. Now, why does he say that we should just burn that tree in the storage area? But James is like, no way, we can't do that. If we do, we're going to die. That tree can only be destroyed by the visitor who created it. And Travis told him all this. But right now, Ruben isn't listening to him and starts moving towards the tree to set it on fire. James keeps trying to hold him back from behind, and Donald even grabbed a gun and followed him to stop him. But Ruben blackmails him, saying, "Look, I'm not like your brothers." Sure. Here's the text translated into colloquial and authentic English. I'm not going to do anything bad, just trust me. So, Donald followed along after that. Inside the house, we see Nicholas and Muriel talking about whether it would be okay to dunk people to get rid of the visitor. Nicholas reads from this makeup diary that a mom had to dunk her daughter underwater to save her, and after that, the visitor left her body. Later, the mom was able to revive her daughter with CPR, and honestly, it wasn't even that bad of a method. In that Sam diary, there was an online. Sure. Here's a colloquial English translation of the text you provided. They mentioned a group that calls itself the Resistance Online. These people know about the visitors and claim they can remove them from humans without causing any harm. But so far, they've never shown themselves in public. Malin responds by saying she doesn't think it's wise to believe in that sort of thing, and their method sounds pretty much like murder. They keep talking about it, and their conversations just keep strengthening their bond. Here's a colloquial and authentic translation of your text. Things get intense, and both of them confess their love for each other. Then we see Laria sitting next to Maggie's mom, trying to figure out who might be the visitor. After some thought, she starts to suspect that the visitor is still inside Maggie's mom, who is sitting right in front of her. Once she realizes this, she gets scared and leaves without saying anything. Meanwhile, we see James and Mary discussing how to get rid of the visitor. They talk about how it's not a good idea to drown anyone. After drowning someone with the method, you have to take off their mask to revive them. As soon as you do that, A visitor that came out will take over someone else's body. Honestly, this whole thing seems pointless to me. I feel like there has to be another way to deal with the bad visitor that they just haven't figured out yet. They're starting to think they might actually die here, which is why I'm trying to fix my messed up relationship with James. Here, you can see how the other people have a hard time with the danger they're facing. Has a colloquial and authentic translation of the provided text. While he was explaining, Malin asked him what it was, and he said it's a map that shows where the machine is going to be. When Malin puts her drawing over the map, she can see the machine's location, the one that was supposed to send back the visitor, Harbinger. On the other hand, we see that Ruben and Donald tried to burn that tree, but it didn't completely catch fire. That's when they realized James was right. The tree wasn't going to be destroyed after all. Just as they were thinking about all this, they spotted Mac running towards them with that multicolored liquid from which the visitors were being created. Here's a colloquial and authentic English translation of your text. It was said that these bad visitors had been stored inside, and this is the same liquid that created that tree. It's shown here that Lyria has come to her son Nicholas, because she believes she has figured out who the bad visitor is. Nicholas follows his mom, and when they go outside, Lyria gives him an injection. It's a sedative. Lyria explains that this is probably for knocking out the bad visitor, so they can take down the good visitor, which is crazy. She also mentions that she found this injection in Maggie's mom's room. Here's a colloquial translation of the text you provided. Nicholas looks stunned and asks what she means by saying the bad visitor is still inside Grandma. Lyria grabs his face and says, "No, the bad visitor is inside you." He doesn't get what she's saying, and then Lyria screams in a really strange way, and suddenly her eyes start to sparkle. Just then, Nicholas' eyes also start to shine, making it clear that the bad visitor, which was once in Lyria, has now jumped into Nicholas. As soon as the bad visitor takes control of Nicholas' body, he immediately tells Nicholas to get his mom out of the way. Here's a colloquial and authentic English translation of your text. A big shock happens that ends up getting his mom killed right there by this bad visitor. This guy managed to target Nicholas because Nicholas was closer to Lo, making him an easier target. Basically, it became easier for him to take out a good guy like Harbinger. After all that, we see a new character in the woods who's digging up something from the ground. She pulls out a bag, takes out a phone, and asks someone about Makanap's location. Then, the scene cuts to the four guys, James, Ruben, Makanap, and Donald. Here's a colloquial translation of the text. Let's see. Makanap has given Ruben that multicolored liquid, and he said that if you drink it, you won't die. But after downing just a bit of it, you won't have enough immunity to cross that blue line. On the bright side, you will definitely get stronger, and with that strength, if you can break off even one branch from that tree, we'll have enough of that liquid for all of us to drink and make ourselves immune so we can cross that line. But before Ruben gets a chance to drink it, Makanap tells him it's about drinking it and breaking that branch. Sure. Here's a colloquial and authentic translation of your text. It's not easy at all. You have to face so much pain, even more than what you'd experience in hell itself. But despite all that, Ruben drinks the liquid because he has to save everyone's life. After drinking it, he rushes over to the tree and, enduring a lot of pain and burning sensations, he finally manages to break off a branch. The moment that branch snaps, it starts to melt, and they all gather up the melted stuff. This melted branch turned into liquid just like the other stuff, and now they have a whole lot of it. Sure, here's the text translated into colloquial and authentic English. They could have boosted their immunity by drinking, which means they could stop the visitors from entering their bodies and controlling them. Inside the place, Homer tells Malin that they need to get out of there quickly since they've figured out how the machine works. But Malin replies, "No, it's not that easy to leave. Look, the bad visitor is still inside someone here." While they're talking, all of a sudden, Nicholas calls out to Malin from the window. Without even thinking that Nicholas might have a visitor inside him too, Malin goes over to meet him. Then Nicholas shows her a syringe in his hand. Here's a colloquial and authentic translation of the provided text. She grabs the drug that makes you pass out and says, "You know, the bad visitor was inside my mom. And look, I got these drugs from her." Hearing this, Nicholas grabs her face and starts screaming like before. I mean, all this craziness was because of the bad visitor messing with Malin. As soon as the bad visitor took control of Malin's body, he knocked Nicholas out with a rock. He targeted Malin because she was Lo's sister and was always around her. He thought his mission was finally complete. Here's a colloquial and authentic translation of your text. Without anyone noticing, the good visitor Harbinger has seen everything. He quickly makes his way to James and Meg and fills them in on all the dirty details about Malin. He explains how he witnessed a bad visitor take over Malin's body from Nicholas, and now they need to prepare to get the visitor out of Malin's body. They start filling the tub with water, and just as Malin walks into the house, Meg points a gun at her. At that moment, the bad visitor realizes they found out about Malin. Here's a colloquial translation of the text. A bad visitor threatens them, saying if they don't hand over more people, he'll kill their daughter, Malin. Malin even held a knife to her own neck. But before anything could happen, someone came from behind and took control of the situation, dragging her to the bathroom. They tried to drown Malin in the water together, but it wasn't that easy. After a struggle, they managed to submerge her, and after a while, when Malin stopped moving, they quickly pulled her out. Meg hurriedly took off her mask to revive Malin. Here's a more colloquial and authentic English translation of the text. She starts doing CPR on him, and finally, Malin comes to. For a moment, it seems like the bad visitor is out for good. But there's a twist in the story. Turns out, the bad visitor had actually slipped into James when they were dunking Malin underwater. Just then, Merlin had reached up and yanked off James's mask. So the bad visitor quickly jumped from Malin's body into James's. Malin and Maggie realize this and immediately rush out of the house to escape James, who's right on their heels. Here's a colloquial and authentic translation of the text you provided. So basically, James was supposed to catch Lo, not these two. He saw that Lo was heading into the animal shirt, so he followed him inside. Once inside, he found Lo, who told him, "You can't beat me." But James shot back, "And I won't let you win either." Just then, Before James could say anything to Lo, who's actually the good guy, Maggie sneaked up and cleverly jabbed James in the leg with a syringe filled with a sedative. That's how he ended up passing out right there. Here's a colloquial translation of your text. So, it was finally time for Maggie and Lo to make a run for it. They thought they could just escape from here, but the visitor was still alive, and they had no idea how to take him down. Then Lo tells Maggie, "We don't need to kill the visitor, we need to trap him." As soon as she hears this, she gets what she needs to do. It showed that James, the bad visitor, had come down far enough to attack Maggie. But somehow, she manages to get him under control and shoves him into a freezer, really putting her all into it. Here's a colloquial and authentic English translation of the text you provided. When they say try, James, aka bad visitor, tells them, "You can't beat me or kill me." In response, Maggie says, "We don't want to kill you. We just want to trap you." As soon as James hears that, he realizes what they're up to. But before he can do anything, Mag locks the freezer lid shut. Just at the right moment, Robin comes in and puts a ton of weight on top of the freezer, trapping James inside. Meanwhile, we can hear James screaming and begging, and his wife hears it too, along with everyone else. But no one does anything. Sure. Here's a colloquial and authentic translation of your text into English. No one could do it. And now the visitors were trapped. They came outside and started drinking the colorful liquid that Ruben had gathered one by one before crossing the blue line. By crossing this line, they were all set on a mission to save everyone. But Maggie's mom didn't join them. She said, "No, I'm staying here." Respecting her wishes, they left her there and took off in the car through the woods. While driving, they spotted that girl we saw a little while ago in the jungle. They were tracking the location of Maggie. Here's a colloquial and authentic translation of your text. They came here doing their thing, and before these folks could even chat with each other, a car suddenly zooms in and slams into the two of them. They just stand there, watching. A guy wearing a mask climbs out of the car and starts checking their bags. Inside, he finds some knockout medicine and some other stuff, which clearly showed that there were bad visitors involved. Then a girl steps out from the Sam car and tells them, "See, these two weren't your friends. They were actually enemies. I saved you from them. And I figured out that you all are immune now. I want to tell you something." Sure. Here's a more colloquial and authentic translation of the text. Now those people have all gone inside humans, and humans are in danger. You can fight them yourself if you want, but the chances of everyone surviving are pretty low. But if you team up with us, we'll become way stronger, and it'll be a lot easier for us to fight them. In response, Maggie says that she won't agree to support them until they come clean about what's really going on here, which basically none of these people have figured out yet. But right before the girl can give any answer, this season ends on a mysterious note.